gotten a notice that we are starting the recording. So just everyone is aware that we are recording this webinar. And just as a note, we're going to save questions until the end. So if you have questions, please hold on to them or please put them in the chat. So just to quickly go through the agenda of what we're going to talk about today. So we're going to do some welcome and introductions to our age-friendly team. We're going to do a quick review of our multi-sector blueprint for aging. And then we're going to talk about the action teams and the roles and responsibility of conveners, the roles and responsibilities of the age-friendly Minnesota team, and then the tools, agenda template, and reporting for initial action team meetings. Then we'll discuss our next steps, and then we'll leave time at the end for questions and answers.
Great. I'll start the introductions here. Thank you, everyone, for joining us this afternoon. My name is Mike Sandin. I'm the Interim Director for Age Friendly Minnesota. This is exciting. I think this is kind of what we've been waiting for, this work on these action teams and really start getting to work on our blueprint and seeing how things can progress in the next several years and how we can continue to make our state age friendly. But I'm really looking forward to the discussion and working together with you folks. Hand it off to Farah.
My name is Farah Baig, and I'm the Legislative Coordinator for the Age Friendly Minnesota Council, and just joined the team very recently. But I am very happy to be here and talk with you all about action teams. As just to reiterate what Mike said, we're very excited to launch these action teams going forward. And I'll pass it off to Lydia.
Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome. Nice to have you here. I'm Lydia Morkin. I'm an age-friendly planning consultant that's been working with Age Friendly Minnesota for several years now. So I'm really excited to be at this point of the work, and we look forward to discussing the action teams with you.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I'm Ann Olson, Grants Administrator with Age Friendly. Been on the team since November, and part of my role is providing administrative support to the Blueprint and the Action team. So I'm looking forward to working with all of you.
Thank you. So I think importantly, we need to do a little bit of grounding to understand why we're here. This is part of our what we call Minnesota's Blueprint for Aging. I think the most proud thing that when I came into this role was the fact that I'm really proud that we've reached out with to over 3,500 community members to get their input into this blueprint. The way we look at this blueprint is sort of an iterative process, and what we're participating in is in a 10-year plan to make work on making the state age friendly. And I think what makes this so unique is we're really making a concerted effort to work with other state agencies, new partners, and helping to really ensure that we can make the state age friendly and have people thrive in their community as long as possible. Our blueprint is a byproduct of several years' work where we just, or a couple years' work, where we just launched our first 1.0 blueprint this December. And the blueprint is, I don't know if you guys have seen it, I'm sure we'll add it into the slides here, or the chat. But what's nice about the blueprint is it's broken up into 4 different domains, and these are sort of big encompassing topic areas. And then it cascades down into the strategies and then 35 different objectives. And these objectives are part of why we're here to have this discussion about these action teams. Just a little bit more background about the timeline here. Thank you, Ann. So we really started this community and partner engagement in 2021, and then we joined this multi-collaborative effort to make a blueprint or a multi-sector plan for aging. And we're doing this with the National Organization Center for Healthcare Strategies. And I think we're one of 10 states that are in this process to build these blueprints moving forward. And I think I already touched upon this a little bit earlier. One of the things that we're most proud of is our effort working with people all around the state. In 2023, we had 7 different regional exchanges where we're gathering input about our blueprint and how to plan for these next steps. And as recent as this past fall, we had action teams that were formed around the 4 domains. And this is where we got a lot of different ideas and a lot of different momentum on what the blueprint was going to look like, which was ultimately, like I mentioned, published in December. And now we're at this juncture where in 2025, we want to start launching these action teams. And these action teams are going to inform our multi-sector blueprint for aging. So with you folks here, you're going to help give us the information we need to carry the torch forward to make sure that we do make this state age friendly. So you can go into the next slide. Like I said, I've already touched upon this a lot. We had needs assessments. We had tribal survey, and like I mentioned, the regional exchanges, a lot of different partner meetings here and there. But I think, like I said, we're most proud of the fact that we've done we think a positive job, but we're always willing to more growth too, but of trying to get to other people that we don't otherwise always meet with. So go ahead, Ann, you can go next slide. This is there.
So what are action teams? That is why we've called you all here to explain what these are. So action teams are really going to take the lead in implementing the blueprint. We're kind of putting that in your hands. What we're hoping is that these action teams will really bring a lot of public engagement and bring cross-sector teams, state agency representatives, along with community partners, along with other stakeholders that will really, these individuals who are already really involved in the work, and how will they move the action team and the blueprint forward. And then we're really hoping that these action teams will serve as also advocates and also provide data sources that we can leverage to show that our blueprint is actually moving forward. Next slide, please. All right, so what are the responsibilities of action teams? So like I said, we are trying to get a lot of different individuals at these action team tables, government agencies, community organizations, subject matter experts who will really be able to drive the work forward. And because these individuals are already kind of like entrenched in this work, they will be the best positioned to tell us what are the trends and challenges that are associated with this work. We also are asking these action teams to develop kind of mini plans of action, plans of action that are specifically focused on the different objectives within the blueprint. We're asking that the action teams meet on a regular basis. At a minimum, we're asking for quarterly meetings, but we know that in order to move work forward, most likely those meetings have to take place more often. We are asking that these action teams actually advocate for policy changes so that age-friendly designs, programs, and system changes can happen. And again, about the metrics and data, what are the metrics and data that we need to be looking at to show progress? And then, of course, from these action team meetings, we're asking that you provide us with kind of regular updates as to how your action team is progressing. Next slide, please. All right, so specifically, most of you are here because you've either shown an interest in becoming a convener, or you already kind of selected the team that you would like to lead or be a convener of. So in the next couple of slides, I'm going to kind of talk about what your roles and responsibilities are. So a convener would organize and coordinate the work of an action team. And this is, of course, your area of expertise. Who should be at the table? So we'll provide a list of people who have signed up for your action team, but you might also have your own networks of people that you feel should be part of the conversation. As a convener, you also serve as the main point of contact between the team, the Friendly Minnesota team. And then most importantly, this third bullet is probably the most important. We want you to be a champion. So when we say champion, these are people who are going to keep the energy and momentum going. So there was a lot of energy that came out of the fall convenings that Mike addressed. And how do we keep that momentum going? And so we're really depending on conveners to move the work forward and keep the energy going. Ideally, we'd like 2 conveners per action team, and that's because it's going to be a little work. And so we realize that if we only have one convener, we have one convener, but ideally we'd like to have two. Next slide, please. So what are the expectations of a convener? So that initial meeting when we launched the action teams, so we're hoping that after today's meeting, decide action team you would like to convene, or maybe you already have that in your mind, or maybe after the information we present, you'll have a better sense of that. But once action team conveners are kind of like flushed out, we ask that the convener reach out to the action team members. And at the end of this presentation, we'll also kind of give you the nuts and bolts, the pieces that you need to make that happen. We're going to ask that you reach out to these action team members and then facilitate that initial meeting. Let us know, the H-Friendly staff, when that meeting is taking place. And then we'd really prefer that that initial meeting be virtual so that individuals across the state, regardless of where they're physically located, they can participate in the action team. And then ongoing. So we don't really have a sense of how long your action team will continue because the work hasn't started yet. So depending on how long your action team kind of goes for, we'd ask that you continue to facilitate those meetings going forward. Also, note-taking form so that you all, the conveners, know exactly what kind of information we're looking for. So at the first meeting, we're kind of looking for that baseline data, and the note-taking form that we're going to provide gives you that sense of what kind of baseline data we're looking for. And then we ask that if there are quote-unquote homework assignments given to any of the action team members, that you follow up on those assignments so that we know that the work is progressing. And then again, keep up to date with data and metrics and you're probably doing because you're already entrenched in that field. And then we ask that at a minimum, you report back to us quarterly so we can just, see the progress of your particular team. Next slide, please. All right. So in order to make this happen, how will we help facilitate that? What support can you expect from us? So at that initial action team launch, we're going to be providing a guide that will show you like a little glimpse of towards the end of this presentation. And that action team guide will not only give very general information about action teams, but it'll also give specific information that details your action team. What kind of information do you need to be focusing on in your action team? We'll also provide the contact information for people who have signed up for your action team, so it'll be really easy for you to reach out to them. We'll provide that like a kind of a template for an email outreach if you choose to use it. And then we'll provide like an initial agenda template, which aligns really well with the note-taking form so that it should be a relatively smooth meeting in terms of what should be happening. And then if you need it, not necessarily that you have to, but if you would like our support at that initial meeting, one of us is very happy to attend that initial meeting so that if you need help with note-taking or any other type of facilitation, we can address that. And then ongoing, as the action teams progress, we'll have regular check-in meetings with conveners just to see how you're doing, what's the progress, and if there's any needs that we can address. We'll also, what we're really hoping for is a kind of feedback loop so that we get information from you, and then that information can be uploaded onto our H-Friendly Minnesota website. So we're developing a data dashboard, which will kind of house that baseline information that you will collect at the first meeting. And then as information is collected, as you develop your goals for your particular action team, we'll put that up on the website so everybody can kind of follow along. And then finally, we don't know what issues will come up as the action teams develop, but we will be there to assist in any way we can. So with that, I don't know if I have another slide. Let's see.
This next one is me. All right, so for reporting, so Farah touched on this a little bit, but following that initial action team meeting, which we are anticipating to happen in February or March, we ask that you report on, we'll provide a note-taking form, but it will report on all the different pieces in that initial meeting agenda, which we will also go over later in this meeting. And then after that initial action team meeting, we will ask that you report back after your subsequent action team meetings. So we'll have a much simpler form that we ask that you complete minimum quarterly in alignment with your action team meetings. And we'll provide that link as soon as we have that available as well. So there'll be one kind of more comprehensive form following the first meeting, and then a simpler form following any action team meetings after that.
Okay, thanks, Anne. I'm going to walk through some of the specifics of the action teams and their current status. So in a moment, we'll walk through each of the 4 domains, but first I just wanted to mention a couple of things. So we have 35 objectives in the blueprint organized across our 4 domains, and the idea is that each objective would have its own action team. So we will be starting with fewer than 35 action teams for a few reasons, and we may end up with fewer than 35 also, partly because some objectives and their respective action teams may be combined, for example, but just to kind of give you a sense of the numbers and the structure, but some of that's still in process of being determined. Also, we don't have conveners signed up for every action team, so those will not launch immediately unless we have additional conveners come on board, which we hope to, and we're going to talk about that in a moment. Next slide, please, Anne. Okay, so this is domain 1, and we'll walk through these teams, but I just wanted to add a couple of things here while we're actually looking at the content. So we're going to have a slide like this for each domain, and you'll see 2 lists on either side. So on the left, you can see the objectives / action teams topics for which we have conveners tentatively identified. And on the right, we have action teams for which we are currently recruiting conveners. So you might notice that as we go through these, especially if there are action teams that you signed up for, that there are just a handful of action teams not listed on these slides. For right now, we are not listing teams that have had no convener volunteer and have a smaller number of people signed up to be on an action team. So like the ones on the right, we're recruiting for teams that don't have a convener, but we have a lot of people signed up to participate on that action team. So there's only about 5 total teams altogether out of the 35 total possible teams across the 4 domains that aren't going to be listed here, but just wanted to mention that in case you have your eye out for a specific team that you were interested in. And we are going to send all of this information out after the meeting, so you can reference it in writing also. Okay, so here for domain 1, we have 3 action teams for which we have conveners tentatively identified. They are affordable housing, age-friendly parks and public spaces, and social engagement through technology. We are recruiting conveners for housing for the lifespan, accessible and age-friendly transportation, community connections and programming, and safe and active transportation for all ages. So there is only one objective in this domain that is not listed here, just for your information, which is digital inclusion and literacy. We don't have a convener volunteered, and we also don't have kind of a critical mass of people signed up at this point for that action team. So that's the status of domain 1. So next slide, please. Okay, so this is for domain 2, which is emergency preparedness, individual rights, and safety. So we have got conveners tentatively identified for protection from all forms of abuse and exploitation, supported decision-making, and long-term care rights. And we are recruiting for community education, enhanced access to justice, and integrated emergency response systems. So there's only one objective not listed here in this domain, which is appropriate state licensure of long-term care systems. And I just want to note too that for the ones on the left where we have a convener tentatively identified, if you are interested in convening that action team, still let us know. For one thing, these are not finalized yet, so there still may be an opportunity to be a convener, even if it's already listed as, tentatively filled. And also, as we mentioned, we're hoping that we'll have 2 people kind of tag teaming the convener role in some cases, so there may be an opportunity to do that too. So just wanted to let you know that those may still be available as we go through these. Next slide, please. Okay, so domain 3, optimized health and longevity. There's a lot of content here. So we have conveners tentatively identified for ensure standards of care for residents with mental health and substance use disorders, person-centered practices and individual choice within long-term care communities, promising public health practices and promotions, and equitable opportunities for brain health. And then we're recruiting conveners for, I'm just actually, instead of reading them, I'm just going to pause and I'm going to let you read them because I think it'll be faster than reading out loud. And they're kind of a mouthful. So that is domain 3. And then just so you know, there are 3 objectives in this domain that aren't listed because, again, no convener and kind of not a critical mass of people signed up. Those are health insurance access and navigation, attract and retain direct care workers, and training and growth, career growth opportunities. All right, domain 4 slide, please. Okay, this is our last domain, economic security and vitality. We have 3 where we have a convener tentatively identified, which is meeting basic needs and beyond, vital contributors to the workforce, and valued volunteerism for all ages. And we are recruiting conveners for 2, which is essential caregivers of our families, and retirement and financial preparedness. So there, you may have questions. As Anne said, we're going to hold them till the end, but also we may be addressing them, as the presentation continues. Feel free to put any in the chat. I see we have 1 question in the chat, and we can be thinking about them, and we'll answer them at the end. But you can also just hold it in your mind until the end and ask verbally too. That's just fine. So now I'm going to pass it to Farah, and she's going to talk about tools to get started.
Thank you, Lydia. So what kind of tools can we provide that perhaps will make the action team experience a little more fluid? So the things that I'm going to share with you now are an action team guide, a note-taking form that is aligned really well with the agenda template. And then we're also going to be providing a contact list. I don't think I have a slide for the contact list, but you will be getting a contact list. Next slide, please. All right, so the first thing we're going to be providing each action team convener, and actually all the action team members, is a action team guide. And this is like a really simplified version of what your action team will be focused on. So it's just a 2-sided sheet. The first side is just going to give very general information about action teams and then provide some resources that will help the action team process along. And the flip side of that document will have specific information on your action team. So here, like just as an example, is affordable housing. So within connected communities, which is the domain, which is the vision that we have for all of Minnesota, strategies, affordable housing for the lifespan. So one way to make connected communities is to have affordable housing across the lifespan. And then within that, what is something more specific is so done in the action team guide is kind of listed all these out. And so these are the tactics that were highlighted at the convenings that we had back in the fall of 2024. So when many of you all attended those, and if you remember, like there were votes on the tactics, these are the tactics that kind of had the most energy behind them. And that's why they became priority tactics. And those are the tactics that we are hoping that the action teams will kind of coalesce around and work towards pushing forward. Next slide, please. All right, so
I get
is
this
Mike's.
one. Yeah.
Yep.
One thing before I jump into this, I think, and I maybe Farah or maybe Lydia brought this up, but some people have been asking, have been getting a lot of sort of questions about, there's a lot of parallel efforts going around the states, like around workforce issues, around caregiver support. I know one of my colleagues as recently as I think it was like maybe 6-7 months ago, had a lot of meetings around caregiver issues and providers and enrollment and things like that. We're going to do our best to fold those topic areas into some of these action teams and bring some of those people that were part of those other conversations into this, just to show that, we're talking with each other and we're having these sort of cross pollination sort of efforts. And there's some we may not even be aware of either, because obviously we work at DHS, but we'll do our best to try to fold in parallel conversations with some of these action teams. But related to this slide, so the initial meeting that you're going to host as a convener will look a lot like this. But one of the big things that we want to have you do is, what is your organization currently working on related to this objective area? Sort of like really deep dive, and you'll see with the handout that Farah just talked about earlier, you'll be able to understand what the tactics are related to this objective and see where your organization aligns or your community aligns with those objectives. And I think the other thing that we want to make sure is we kind of want to come from an abundance model, sort of like who's missing from the conversation. So really sort of think about who else can we invite that that might be interested in this, moving this part forward or this objective forward. The next slide, Ann. And then this is a little bit more of a robust version of what this first meeting is going to look like. So we want you to really sort of establish these goals and sort of norms. What are some short and long-term goals related to this objective, and really discuss that. And this isn't going to be the first meeting where you're going to have this discussion, but just if you can kind of set that goal setting at the beginning, that would be great. And we realize that, again, other people are going to come in as it goes along. But also we want to understand what's out there. What are the metrics that are being measured related to this objective? What's the legislation related to this? What's sort of where's the efforts being done? And then here's the logistics, sort of like you'll be talking about frequency. You'll be talking about, what's the next meeting is going to look like. But ultimately, when you have, and I think in the next couple of slides, we'll go into sort of the reporting around it. But I think the key is we want to have you guys report to us with the form that we're going to give you, and then we'll use that to inform the process as we move forward. You can go ahead, Ann.
So as Mike stated, and as we said, so after the first initial action team meeting, we will have a note-taking form, and this form is going to follow along right in sync with that initial meeting agenda. So we ask that all the action teams have a very similar first meeting agenda, so that we can gather all this information from each of the action teams. Each of the action teams are going to look different after that initial meeting, but we want to make sure that first initial meeting is similar so we can capture all of this information. So that agenda and this note-taking form follow along very well together. So if you're taking notes from that initial meeting, we'll ask that you complete this form afterwards. You can do it right in the form during the meeting, or you can also do it in a separate document and then submit this form afterwards. But either way, it is the convener's responsibility to either take notes or delegate or ask Age-Friendly Minnesota staff to take notes at that initial meeting.
Thanks, Ann. Sort of the next step. So this lays it out. So after this meeting, the next day or two, we're gonna send out these slides to all the conveners that have signed up, the recording, and actually a list of all the 35 action teams or objectives, just so you guys have all that information. And again, I think Lydia put it up in here. You can also find that in the blueprint that is in the link there. If you've decided to become a convener, if you could also do a follow-up email to Farah, she's located on here, let us know what action team you want to lead. That'll help us with some future planning here. And then also as it keeps going, we're going to be, as we learn who, more and more people get signed up, we'll be finalizing conveners and sort of like giving assignments as those keep coming through. And then once we get everything going, we want to get that first meeting planned. If you can, as a convener, once you know that, you'll have to tell us when your first meeting is, and we'd like to get that going as soon as possible, hopefully next week or two. So yeah, Farrah, you might want to put your email also in there, just so we're going to roll to the next slide here. That'll be great. And then I think, yeah, we are ready for a Q&A. And it looks like, I think Julie had the first question here. Is there a way to learn more about? Yeah, and I think Julie, to answer your question, if you go into the blueprint, you can see some more specifics around the goals, and we call them tactics, and these will be the tactics related to that objective that you're seeing there. Will you be listing the tentative conveners? We're still kind of analyzing who the conveners are, but eventually we will be reaching out to the tentative conveners once more and more people start assigning. Anything to add to that, Farrah or Lydia? I think we talked a little bit about that.
Sorry, go ahead, Lydia.
Oh, well, yeah, I think we won't be sharing tentative conveners, but once they're finalized, we'll be sharing those names. And I think, we should have kind of the first batch finalized, relatively soon. And then as the previous slide said, it'll kind of be on a rolling basis after that. But we won't be, I think, sharing the names until they're finalized, if that answers the question. But if you have specific questions, feel free to email us and check in. And I don't know if you have anything to add, Farrah.
No, I think that was great. Just to respond to Bonnie's question, people who signed up for this trainer may not remember if they indicated that they wanted to be conveners. So what we'll be doing is right after, I think this was addressed earlier, but right after this convening, we'll be sending out kind of a very broad informational letter in terms of what action teams we are looking for conveners for. And so those spots are still available in case if you have signed up for a specific action team, you should have already received an email that indicates what action team you signed up for. If you didn't receive an email like that, that probably means that you didn't sign up for something specific. And
Anita had a question here. We don't know if we are assigned or a tentative convener. I think per what Farrah just said, we will reach out to you, Anita, about your status shortly. So hopefully that can answer. If we're trying to get an active age-friendly county committee going, how would you suggest we participate in these action teams? I feel like that might be two parallel things that are happening with the. I'm not sure what county you're from, but definitely working with the sort of prescriptive process through ARP. But I think we would definitely like you to participate in action teams that you think are germane to your age-friendly plan. But I think sort of like once we send out the list, Shauna, I think you can see where you can participate and where that fits with your age-friendly efforts with your county. Is there financial support for conveners? Right now, we do not have financial support for the conveners. We are looking at you as public citizens to help really move the ball forward with us along this process. So no, we do not. I signed up for 2 action teams and did not get an email. But not as a convener. You will get eventually someone or a convener will be reaching out to you to talk about that initial meeting related to your action team that you signed up for.
Well, and I think assuming we know that we have some action teams will be moving forward sooner than later. So when yours is ready to move forward, you'll be notified and that will be confirmed. If you've signed up for some that aren't moving forward, for the reasons we kind of discussed when I was walking through the status of the action teams. Like maybe we don't get a convener for the action team you signed up for. We'll have to, once we have a little more final information, we will notify people who signed up to be on those action teams, so you know the status of them. And then maybe you would like to participate in a different action team that is launching sooner than later. But we will be following up with people once we have a little bit of more complete information. And we are close to having, again, kind of that first cohort ready to go. And then hopefully as we get more conveners signed up too, then we'll be kind of launching some additional ones on a rolling basis. But hope that's helpful also.
And if you can go back to the slides with the next steps, just so we have that up so everyone can finally see that, or we're waiting maybe for some more questions here. Maybe as more questions come in, I really want to thank everyone for, first of all, participating in this webinar, and also for signing up to participate as a convener or even be part of the action team. So this is really important. How do we know if we signed up for sure? We can certainly follow up with you, Julie, to find out if you signed up for sure. Yeah, someone will get back to you, Julie.
And we did have a number of people that signed up and said, you know, you might be interested or willing to convene a few different teams, or you might be interested in one of 3 or something. So if you at this point know for sure, you know, that you would prefer this one to these other 2, you can let us know that via email. Otherwise, we will follow up with you too. But we did have some people who had a kind of more flexible ideas of their participation. So we'll kind of get that all ironed out and get the pieces put together. But that's also part of the process.
All right. Well, I appreciate everyone taking your time out of your afternoon to join us here and I think do this really important work. Again, you'll be hearing from us at some point, either as a convener or as a participant of the action teams with sort of next steps. But how many? Well, okay, that's a good question, Kathy. How many meetings are the convener required to oversee? It kind of depends, I would say, on the momentum of the group. You know, it's kind of, some of the action teams might have a bigger, like more people involved, but I think we'd like to, at least for the next, 6-12 months, it'd be nice to have some people at least meet quarterly to talk about the progress, because we all know a lot can happen within a time period. And the idea will then, again, will feed the process and feed the blueprints. Yes, we will include a link to the blueprint as well. All right. All right. Well, thank you, everyone. I really appreciate you attending this afternoon, and stay tuned for some more information to come from our Age Friendly Minnesota.
Thanks, everybody.
Bye now.
Thank you. Bye, everyone.